What's up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to another edition of FanDuel Friday, breaking down some MLB. We've taken you through the NFL season, we've taken you through the NBA season, and now we got this beautiful game of baseball ready and upon us, and we're going to break it down. My name is TJ Zwarych. I'll be your host, joined, not as always, but often by my good buddy, Justin Carlucci, the Luuch. How you doing?
What's up, TJ? I can't believe how many sports we've gone through already the past, 8 months, something like that. Time really flies. It's always fun to be here. We hope you guys can take away some good stuff here. And of course, this is just an early look. If you want a really early look, you can listen to the Morning Grind with Stevie, and TJ is a guest on there pretty frequently. And every now and then I make a cameo. So you get a really early look on the Morning Grind, and then you get kind of an early look on FanDuel Friday. And then, of course, we just have so much content pumping out throughout the day. And I love baseball. It's just such a game of numbers, and there's a lot of new faces this season in the sport, including Mr. Senga, who has a lot of blips on lineup HQ, TJ. So I cannot wait to talk about pitching with you.
Let's dive into this one, and in terms of the pitching slate, because we got guys priced up here on FanDuel. That's kind of been the biggest difference between FanDuel and DraftKings I've noticed throughout this season, is that FanDuel has kept a very tight pricing pool with their pitchers, and it's quite a bit softer with the bats. Whereas on DraftKings, they're very quick to price batters up, but they just leave pitchers priced all like real low so you can kind of get to whoever you want. How does that kind of impact your general strategy on FanDuel this year? Does that kind of make it so that when there randomly is a cheap pitcher, you go, oh, damn, like I got to get this guy in today because this rarely happens? Or do you not try and worry about it too much because it's pretty easy to find the value in the bats?
Man, the worst answer is a little bit of both, because there's just some guys coming out of nowhere, like Graham Ashcraft really turned it on a notch, and he was priced pretty low for about a start. And so I think it's just kind of slate dependent. There are times where FanDuel does just generally price certain players at funky spots. I mean, yesterday Juan Soto was about a full grand cheaper than Aaron Judge, I believe, on FanDuel. So it's really just slate dependent. But Drew Rasmussen, Tampa Bay just finds pitchers and turns them into really good pitchers. However, I don't know if he has a strikeout upside, especially against Toronto. Now, if he was pitching against, let's say, the Giants or someone that was super K heavy, then you can make a case for him. But I think it's kind of slate and matchup dependent. And I know that's not a fantastic answer. But when you look at a guy like Senga, who has been pitching really well, I know he played the Marlins twice. And he's relevant in this conversation because he is now the second highest pitcher on FanDuel. He gets another cake matchup, and it's arguably better than the Marlins with Oakland, pitcher's ballpark, another team who hasn't seen this ghost fork live, and he produces a sick amount of whiffs on it so far. So I'm pretty much in on Senga in every game that he's facing a new team for the first time at least. So the guy's good. It's not like he's a rookie. He's been pitching overseas for, X amount of years. So I think he definitely has upside when you take into consideration the quality start and the win. Who are they playing? James Caprillion. I would feel like the Mets have a really nice chance of having a nice little field day against Caprillion, which puts Senga, in the conversation to get those quality start and those win points, which he probably will need to pay off that price tag. That's the only problem. Can you get those extra 10 points, TJ?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I do still think he's going to be my main pitcher today. Having said that, this is a totally different slate for me on FanDuel, depending on how many lineups I'd be looking to play. So if I was running 150 today, I'd be mixing and matching. Senga would still be my number one guy. But I think my next favorite for tournaments would be a guy like Charlie Morton at 9K facing Kansas City. Struggled in his first start, second start, picked things back up, looked like himself a little bit, had 6Ks. He's cheap, and nobody's going to be going to him today. I think realistically, like, Charlie Morton could be the highest raw point scorer on the slate tonight. The chalk is basically all going to be on Senga, Garcia, or Cortez. Senga is going to be the guy that I'd want to get heavily overweight on, and Cortez and Garcia, who are currently picking up more projected ownership than him, those are the two that I'd be looking to get heavily underweight on. Cortez has a 31% strikeout rate to lefties, but only a 23% strikeout rate to righties. And he's expected to face 8 right-handed bats in Minnesota today. It's not as crazy of weather as it was yesterday when we saw those 9 first inning runs for Minnesota, but this is still 80-degree weather. It's still winds not blowing straight out, but out to left. And so this is still like probably the best hitting weather on the slate. I don't think I feel the need to get to much Nestor Cortez today because he's a fly ball pitcher and he's really just average on strikeouts to right-handed bats. He's not bad by any means, but he's just kind of average. And then you look at it this season, like he's only struck out 17% of 18% of right-handed batters so far this year. He's only his ground ball percentage. It's obviously a super limited sample size. This is going to adjust. But there are trends at the beginning of the season, whether or not people have their stuff or not, and you can kind of figure it out. Now, Cortez hasn't been bad by any means, but he's only striking out 8% of right-handed batters, and his strikeout rate and his ground ball rate are the same. They're both 18% to start the season. They're all going in the air. This is 80 degrees. I'm totally down to take some shots on Minnesota today in tournaments. And I don't think I want to get heavily underweight to guys like Cortez and use that ownership to take shots elsewhere.
You make so many good
points. You make so many Rasmussen. Yeah. You go. Sorry. Yeah. Tell me about my good points.
If you guys follow along with the TJ Zwarych story, back when we first started, TJ would always cut me off and would make a joke out of it, and then I'd mute myself, so I'd let him talk, and then I would mute myself. This goes back to the Steve Huffman, TJ and Luuch Thursday night football days. But sorry, I guess 6 months later I'm returning the favor there, buddy. But I was really excited because whenever we're on the same page, we tend to have some pretty good nights. And Cortez is the guy I if I'm picking a guy to X out of my pool, is Cortez. I don't know what the upside is here. I'm not convinced he can get the win or even the quality start. He hasn't looked terrible, but hasn't looked great. The fact that Buxton and Correa are back in this lineup as of yesterday, again, and they're swinging really good bats in good weather, I'm okay with not pitching Cortez at this price tag. Totally different story if he was like 8K or something like that. I love the Charlie Morton call. I do think there are a couple bats in that lineup that could do a little bit of damage off him. But if he gets through Vinny P and another guy or two, the Royals are striking out a lot. That's for sure. And Morton, I'm willing to give pitchers free pass their first game of the year. Looked terrible first start. Struck out 6 Padres in a pretty nice start in the second go around. I like the Morton call. Luis Garcia is some chalk I would consider eating. And I want to bring up Plate IQ here, and I think I did that correctly. If I have that on my screen now. Look at me, technologically sound. Look at all that.
This is the guy. Yeah, like this is the guy that I want to basically just get even to the field on, because like you look at Luis Garcia, this is a guy that in the last season and a half has had over a 200 ISO to lefties, and he's going to face at least 6 of them tonight. But then you look at that strikeout rate, and you go, "Ooh, definitely can't X out Luis Garcia today."
Right. You look at all that red. I mean, maybe we have a different conversation if Corey Seager's in the lineup because he's a scary lefty that could really put a hinder on how many innings he goes if the right amount of people are on base and Corey Seager's at the dish. But I think it's okay to have some Garcia exposure. If we're like having a chalk battle between Cortez and Garcia, I'm playing Garcia over Cortez. I'm with you there. Let me switch back to lineup HQ for you. Go ahead, TJ.
Me too. And that's kind of the thing where it's like, if Garcia is going to be 20 to 30% owned today, I'll probably have 20% Garcia and like 20% Morton, so that I'll have kind of those similar teams where, like, I love the idea of playing Luis Garcia with 2 completely off the board stacks today. And then if you want to play some batters that are picking up more ownership for like, and we talked about some like misprices with the bats, like Manny Machado is 3K. He's probably going to be the highest owned bat on this slate. Shohei Ohtani's in a great spot. So get Machado in your lineup, get Shohei Ohtani in your lineup, and run him with Charlie Morton instead of Luis Garcia there, and you're going to be very different. I'm also going to just, like, if I was running 150 lineups, I'd get 5% Waka, 5% Brady Singer, 5% Justin Steele, at least 5% Drew Rasmussen. Guys in difficult matchups, but also not bad pitchers. Like, especially if you look at a guy like Brady Singer today, he's facing this Atlanta team that obviously has a ton of pop, but this is a team that strikes out comparably to that red sea of red in the Texas Rangers lineup we just talked about. They got a 25% strikeout rate. Singer has shown a lot of upside before. He doesn't strike out a lot of righties, but he gets a lot of ground balls to them. And then he's got a 28% strikeout rate to left-handed bats. He's reverse splitsy with his strikeouts, and he's expected to see Olsen, Rosario, Albies, Hilliard, at least 4 of them. And every single one of those guys has at least a 25% strikeout rate. So I think Brady Singer is actually very interesting for tournaments today as well. It's a lot of risk because he's facing Atlanta, but I think there's a lot of upside there as well.
Yeah, it's scary. You took the words out of my mouth. So either that's going to be really good or really bad for us, because we're pretty much on the exact same wavelength tonight. Now, if we're playing another site where you can deal with a cheaper pitcher that can cruise and you're not worried about, strikeout upside, I love Singer. I love the Singer call. But I think you're right. There could be a Brady Singer type ceiling game with these Atlanta strikeout rates here. Cal Quantrill's another guy. He doesn't really strike a ton of guys out. He's super cheap. I don't know if I can get there on this website, but I totally understand if you want to hope Cal Quantrill cruises through Washington elsewhere. I will say, though, I know Colorado is terrible against Coors, and I love the bat, and I love Cardi, but I don't know if Marco Gonzalez is going to be the 5th highest scoring pitcher. He just terrifies me. Just terrifies me.
Because the bat is such a great product. Like,
oh, it's great. Yeah.
150 lineups, maybe get 5% of them just in case it's right. But like, I can't ever play Marco Gonzalez. Like, literally never.
He would have to make up for the lack of strikeout upside with throwing like 8 innings, I feel like, and getting like the extra innings points, because he's not going to strike out a ton of guys. I mean, anytime CJ's Cron's in the lineup on the road, massive K rate, I get it, but I can't go there.
I'd way rather play CJ Cron against a pitcher who only strikes 12% of guys out. Like,
right, and he's been so bad away from home. Like he is Coors Field. Like CJ Cron is Coors Field. But
yeah, like he strikes out 30% of the time, but he's got power. In the last, I can't remember what they were saying, but like in the last X amount of time, there's been 9 home runs over 500 feet, and CJ Cron has 5 of them or something like that. Like, just something stupid. And he's got the power to go out regardless. He just has to make contact with it, right? And so a 30% strikeout rate, but against Gonzalez, like, I'd rather play some Rockies. I'd rather play Bryant, Cron, Montero, and Tovar. A little 4-man cheap sneaky stack, as opposed to playing Gonzalez today.
Look at you segueing beautifully into bats. And if I'm singling a guy out in that stack, it's Chris Bryant, who has a history of hitting lefties, and he's finally healthy. So, Chris Bryant is one of these Rockies that has proven he doesn't need Coors Field to excel as well, which I think is a big point. So I think that, no one's going to play the Rockies on the road. They just carry that stigma that no one can hit the freaking ball away from Colorado. And that's not the case, especially, with Chris Bryant leading the way there. So I'm with you. Colorado, large field tournament, look, fire it up.
And so let's take it to stacks today. We got, in terms of our highest totals, we got Cleveland facing Washington, and that game in Washington's looking like some decent hitting weather today. The Yankees are just below 5 after disappointing outside of Anthony Rizzo, who was the Spidey bum yesterday. Hit that like button, and maybe we'll give away some Spidey bums in this one as well. But outside of Rizzo, Yankees really disappointed last night, but they are in good weather and got that 4.8 total. The Angels are in a great spot today. I believe in the expert survey, Cheese had them as his favorite stack of the day. Atlanta up against Singer, who we talked about, 4.8 total. Houston, 4.8 total. St. Louis, 4.9 total. Mets, 4.8 total. San Diego, 4.8. Seattle, 4.8. As you can see, this is so spread out. And that's one of the reasons why I like keeping a pretty tight pitching pool and getting like 50% Shenga and then just like a little bit of everybody else, because I want to have a Shenga team with each of these stacks because they're all really, really strong today. If I'm picking out one for me personally that is like my favorite tournament stack, And maybe we'll go through some of these positions for like who are the best value plays for their dollar if you're playing some cash, playing some optimal stuff like that. But you know, no, I don't even think we need to do that today because they're going to be doing that on crunch time anyways. Make sure you tune in for that later today. We were just going to go more general strategy for tournaments, and like my favorite, I think, stack on the board today on FanDuel, there's only one player on their team that has is picking up over 10% ownership, and it's the guy who has hit a homer in 5 straight games. It's Tampa Bay. Like, just going to keep riding these waves until these guys aren't amazing anymore. They're facing the Blue Jays. They're facing Jose Barrios, who has not been the same since he has been a Toronto Blue Jay. He's like had some ground ball upside, and he's had some strikeout upside to righties so far this year, but a 60% hard hit rate. You go back to his stats back to last season, struggled mightily. 222 to ISO to lefties, 17% strikeout rate. Couldn't get any ground balls, getting hit hard by both sides. I think I just want to ride the wave with Tampa.
I like it. You know, DFS and playing large field tournaments has just turned into such a game within a game. It's like, all right, let's find like the 8 most mediocre pitchers and just try to find the pitcher that has a complete floor game, right? Like so when there's so many teams that can hit the ball as professionals, the chalk stack more oftentimes isn't going to take down a tournament. There are so many mediocre pitchers that have a range of outcomes that could just get crushed. What do we know about Jose Barrios? Like you said, gives up a ton of hard contact. Isn't fantastic against lefties, and Tampa Bay is really clicking. And Brandon Lowe is the guy who deserves to carry that double-digit ownership on this slate. Wander Franco, don't look at his last year's stats. This guy has taken a step over the offseason. Look at what he's doing now. Love Wander Franco. You know, Luke Raley, platoon guy, maybe in danger of being pinch hit later on in the game. Josh Lowe, you know, good to see him finally doing some things at a big league level. I think he's another lefty who homered this week. Who could be interesting. And of course, the beautiful thing about baseball and all the numbers is there's so many different angles. You could hate a guy and I could like a guy. We could probably both meet in the middle and be like, yeah, you know what? You could play him for that reason. You don't want to totally X out a Rosarina because you're looking for lefties. Why would you want to play Rosarina? Well, he's Randy Rosarina, first of all. Second of all, he is kind of a little bit of a reverse splits hitter. So as much as Barrios, may be better against righties, so is a Rosarina. So I think the Tampa Bay call is a really interesting one here. It's kind of like, when you're betting on golf. Well, he won last week. He can't win again. Tampa Bay's rolling. They can't beat the Blue Jays. No one's going to have them. I like the idea of going overweight on Tampa, TJ. Great call.
That's going to be my favorite tournament stack on the board today. And then outside of that, like the Angels, they're great. St. Louis, totally fine to go with them. Houston, same thing. Mets, same thing. San Diego, same thing. The next team I want to touch on, like specifically though, is San Diego, and that's because Manny Machado is 3K on FanDuel.
Jeez.
This is the first player you're putting in your cash games today. You look at plate IQ, and they're facing Eric Lauer as the pitcher today. And Lauer is a guy with a 202 ISO over the last 2 seasons with a large sample size, almost 600 plate attempts to right-handed bats. Only a 30% ground ball rate, a 43% hard hit rate. And Machado, even though he hasn't had like the strongest start to the season, he finally hit a home run last game. But I guess it hasn't really been bad. It just hasn't been with a lot of home runs until last game. This is a guy with a 253 ISO to left-handed pitching over the last season and a half. Like,
that's a criminal ownership number on him.
Yeah, like this team is just too cheap, and especially Manny Machado. And so if that's not a guy that's going to be like 30% owned at lock, just make sure you're getting up 30% of Manny Machado today. If its ownership does go up, then obviously, yeah, you can chill. You never have to play a 30% owned batter, especially on a big slate. But if it's really going to stay at 10-15%, get yourself an absolute ton of Machado today. If you were to give kind of like your top 4 tournament stacks, because that kind of allows, like, if people are playing 2 lineups, I get this stack with this stack, this stack with this stack. Bang, there I am. What would be your top 4 stacks on this spread out offensive slate today?
let's talk about the Padres first, because I'm not sure where I'm going to rank them right now. And I love Nelson Cruz. I was just going to give some Nelson Cruz kudos. He homered recently. He looks fairly healthy for an old man, but there's no way he should be $300 more than Manny Machado. I mean, what is that? That being said, I like the idea of pairing them together in a stack. I do like the Rays to put in my top 4. The Mets have a big ballpark downgrade, but boy, do they have an upgrade in terms of opposing pitchers here. I love the Mets today. Anytime Pete Alonso gets a lefty who gives up fly balls and decent amount of hard hits to righty, I think Pete Alonso should be a staple of lineups, and it's a very spread out.
Kaprelian is right-handed.
Kaprelian's right-handed. Oh, okay. That's my bad. So,
but I mean, Pete still has a 253 ISO, and Kaprelian, although came into the major leagues as a guy like he's got a crazy good splitter. He's going to be a crazy good slider. He's going to be great to great to righties, but not so great to lefties. Well, he's given up a 50% fly ball rate, 40% hard hit rate to righties, and he's only striking about 20% of the time. So
the problem
he
is
sucks to everybody.
I morph him and Ken Waldichuk into the same pitcher, and one's lefty and one's righty, because neither of them strike anybody out, and they both give up a ton of fly balls. So I've just been targeting anybody against both of them. Tampa Bay destroyed them a couple games ago, and like the bullpen is not good either. Now that Adam Oller has been making spot starts, the long relief game has been even worse. So I can revert that conversation and say, well, Pete Alonso's in play regardless, but the Mets are a team that has hitters on both sides of the plate that are strong, which is probably a good thing that Kaprelian's the guy in the bump today, because you have Jeff McNeil. There's more of a reason to play Jeff McNeil. There's more of a reason to maybe punt Daniel Vogelbach at 2,300, and Brandon Nimmo, who at the top of that order is very cheap as well. You can see there's a couple expert blips here as well. So maybe that was a good omen. Me mixing up the handiness of Kaprelian here. Play a couple of those lefties with Big Pete in the middle there, and I think I lean the Mets as potentially my favorite tournament stack here. I'm really glad you mentioned Tampa Bay, and I think we have to mention Cleveland, especially. I know we're seeing two guys here with double-digit ownership, but honestly, like if you're committing to the full stack, you're still going to land with 2 or 3 guys at single-digit ownership, depending on what site you're playing on. So I think it's still okay to play Ramirez and even Josh Naylor as long as you're committing to playing the rest of that Indian. Oh my God, there I am living in 2010, and I almost said the I word. The Guardians, in your entire stack here. So they just have a massive total here. Trevor Williams has really struggled against lefties. Cleveland is a team that can get you from both sides of the plate, but I just like the stack as a whole. Some people are just afraid to commit to the full stack, and when you jam in the full stack, that's where you get the 2 or 3% Michael Taylors from yesterday that end up doing damage along with the rest of the team. So it doesn't feel good, and it's not going to project the best, but you're going to get the Miles Straw steal 2 bases game or and score 3 runs if the full stacks work. And you're going to get the Stephen Kwan 3 for 5, with a double and 2 runs or something like that sandwiched in there. So I think committing to the full stack with, teams that have super high team totals is important. So for me, it's Mets, it's Cleveland. I like Tampa Bay. I like San Diego, as you mentioned. And as much as I like both pitchers in this Atlanta-Kansas City game, and I think they both have upside, they're both really volatile and kind of scary. So it's totally okay when you're multi-entering to play both sides of a game. TJ, it's something you and I both do. Yeah, I think Atlanta could do damage. Yeah, I think Kansas City could do damage, but they both strike out quite a bit. I don't know exactly what range of outcome we're going to get from either stack or either pitcher. When Charlie Morton gets hit, he gets hit. So I don't mind having a little bit of Kansas City with Vinny P leading the way. Brady Singer, he's just kind of a guy who's shown flashes of a ceiling game. Is he going to have the floor game on this slate? I don't know, but you're going to be able to get the Braves at a pretty nice ownership tonight. Those are 2 like large field tournament options, I think, only though.
I'll be actually taking over the rest of the show as Luuch has now been let go by RotoGrinders after that little slip up. Going back to Cleveland, I agree. Like I think Josh Naylor is a must for cash games. That's one of the best salary savers on FanDuel today. You're probably using your utility position for a third baseman today and playing Jose Ramirez and Manny Machado in that style of lineup today as well. it's a strong weather game, and they got the highest total on the board. They're the only one over 5 today, so I like that call quite a bit. Atlanta and KC, I'm probably not going to get too much of, but the Angels are another team I really like. If you are spending down with somebody like a Morton or a Singer today, give yourself a Trout, Ohtani, Ward stack. Like, those are 3 guys who hit fly balls and hit the ball really hard. They could open the game with 3 straight home runs today. They are projected super strongly. A little Ward, Ohtani, and Trout, or even a little mini stack, using those guys as one-offs. I do think I like just looking here for power a little bit more than the full stack. But the last place I want to touch on here before we maybe give out some home run calls before we get out of here is New York and Minnesota. We touched on Minnesota when we were talking about pitching, but this is still wind blowing out to left, not straight out like it was last game, a little bit across, but still a little bit of a helping wind, especially for the right-handed hitters. Minnesota up against Cortez, who is a fly ball pitcher and doesn't strike out that many right-handed bats, and probably 8 of the 9 batters are going to be from the right side today. I think Minnesota makes for a very, very interesting large field tournament stack. If you're playing one of the chalky pitchers, I think running it back with a Minnesota stack is a phenomenal thing for tournaments. But the New York side of things, like this is the team that disappointed last night. They got the higher total with almost a full point higher than Minnesota today. Last night, Minnesota had Joe Ryan pitching, and he just absolutely mowed down the Yankees. I screwed up here. That's where my night went wrong, is I had a lot of the Minnesota offense, and I went, well, I'm going to be getting a lot of Yankees too. It's 90 degrees and the wind's blowing out. Yeah, Joe Ryan strikes out a lot of righties, but all he needs is 2 people to hit weak fly balls in the first inning, and they go out the park, and his leash is going to be gone. Well, nobody hit the ball other than Anthony Rizzo. All of those righties struck out. Literally every lefty, they got him pretty good outside of Calhoun. Rizzo took him out once and got another homer later in the game. But outside of that, everybody K'd. Now they're facing Varland. L. Varland. I don't even know this guy's first name. He might have some pedigree. Louis. I don't know. I'm not familiar with them. Louis. I'm not familiar with the minor leagues, but he pitched a little bit last year. It didn't go very well. Hasn't pitched for Minnesota this year, but this is a guy that had a 228 ISO to right-handed bats last year. Only a 20% strikeout rate to both sides, getting hit hard from both sides, getting hit in the air from both sides, only a 27% ground ball rate to lefties. We got to like the Yankees today. We got to put this recency bias behind us and just go, let's play the Yanks.
You're right. You're right. And this is exactly what I talked about. We're going to look for an average pitcher, and Louis is unproven. He had a cup of coffee, like you said, didn't go great. It wasn't terrible, though. Worked out to a 3.8 ERA. Strikeout rate was
5.06 xFIP, though.
Exactly. I mean, he was okay. He was a serviceable, organizational depth. Maybe he turns into I'm being optimistic, middle of the arm rotation one day, but it's not now. He's an average pitcher, maybe a little below average or inexperienced, I would say, at the major league level. He gave up 19 homers in 29 minor league games last year. Pretty good hitting weather in New York. This is the exact tournament blueprint you want to make. All right. There's a ton of recency bias, which helps the case to play this team even more, like you said. So why not? I mean, we know the Yankees have power up and down this lineup, and he's not a heavy strikeout pitcher, so the ball can be put in play a little bit more. Short porch and right field there, TJ. I think the Yankees are definitely a really nice tournament look. I'm really glad you brought up this game here, and both sides really. I mean, we know Nestor, doesn't give up a ton of hard contact, but he's struggled to really make it into the 6th inning so far. So, there's a chance that, one side of this game could be optimal. I like the idea of going to the Yankees here, especially if LeMahieu's in. He kind of just helps fill out that stack a little bit here. We know it's not the Coors Field DJ LeMahieu, but it definitely helps differentiate some of these builds a little bit, but you're getting great ownership on these guys regardless. We can't dismiss the start of the season that Gleber has had, 4% ownership. Giancarlo could break a slate. And of course, Rizzo swinging the hottest stick. If you're into recency bias, how about some positive one? Just homered twice. And he's getting a nice matchup here against the Twins. So great call on the Yankees. I don't know where I would slide them into my top stacks, but in terms of volatility and large field looks, I would have the Yankees definitely mixed into my pool, TJ.
In the last week, I have been, Spidey has been 7 for 12 on the bombs, on home run calls. In our last 12, over the last 7 days, we have gone 7 for 12 on our home run calls. If you've been following along, you've been making some money. If you've been having them in your DFS lineups, you've been making some money. If you did a 4-guy parlay on the 4 Spidey bombs on Saturday night for $100, you'd have won about, I think, $80,000, 8,000. I don't know. I never get this. I never get my odds right there. But they went 4 for 4, and all of them had at least 4 to 500 plus 4 to 500 odds there. So it was a lot of money. Hit the like button on this YouTube video, because I know those watching FanDuel Friday, like, this isn't live. I can't force you to do it, but I trust you. We need you to do it. It helps us, and I have the faith that you guys are going to be hitting the like button. So the reason why I wanted to talk about the Yankees last is because Spidey's going back to back here, and Anthony Rizzo is going to be a Spidey bomb for the second straight day. And then our other Spidey bomb that we're going to be going with today, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm torn as to which of the two players I want to go with here, because Spidey said he thinks there's a good chance they can both hit a home run. But the tough aspect is he doesn't know which of these two players he wants to choose. But I just feel it. I'm going to choose for him because Randy Arozarena is going to hit a home run today. It was between Franco and Arozarena. Brandon Lau, I wrote in the expert survey, I think Lau, Franco, and Arozarena are all going to be hitting home runs today. So the official one is Anthony Rizzo, but I like those Tampa bats here as well. Luuch, you got any home run call picks for the people? We were talking before the show that, like, maybe this isn't the best day to, like, just straight up make home run bets, because the odds are not that great. There's been a ton of home runs to start this year, and it kind of seems like the books have adjusted and just gone like, screw you guys. Like, we're cutting all these odds in half.
I mean,
but are
you're
there
right.
any at all that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, like, odds aside, my favorite player to home run today is not on the main slate, and he is 3-1 only on FanDuel. It's Jorge Soler against Bumgarner. But, you log on, and it's like, all right, let's look for some home run calls. Kyle Schwarber's plus 140. It's, like, not even worth the risk. Aaron Judge, what is he? Plus 170 on Caesars. Teoscar Hernandez, I was excited to look at that against Austin Gomber. Plus 245. No, thank you. Yeah, like, come on. Whatever, you Blue Jays homer. Teoscar. Did I put the right accent over the right vowel? Teoscar. Whatever.
Teoscar.
He betrayed you. He's in America now, man. He's no longer a Blue Jay. But you don't want to pay those odds. They're great. Looking at home run odds, Vegas knows what they're doing. So when you're looking at putting a DFS line together and you're curious, wow, Mike Zunino has good odds today. What's up with that? Well, he's in a good matchup, and Vegas knows that there's going to be money in on him. I like Vinny P to homer. I do. And as much as we talked about that game, both pitchers and both stacks have upside in that game. That game has the best hitting weather for home runs, according to Weather Edge so far. Nothing massive like the Coors Field games earlier this week, but Morton throws that patent knuckle curve quite a bit, and Vinny P loves hitting that pitch. So I got him at plus 5 something, which is pretty generous odds in this day and age to bet home runs. Another guy who has really good odds, Christian Walker. He just doesn't get the name recognition. He had over 30 home runs last year. Trevor Rogers gave up 13 of his 14 homers to righties last year, I believe, off the top of my head. Regardless, he's plus 570 to hit a home run. A guy coming off a 35, I think, home run year should be priced up with, the Teoscars of today and Kyle Schwarber, but he doesn't have that name recognition. So I'll definitely take that value on Christian Walker. And the other one I wrote up for scores and odds, speaking of should be priced up to 2-1, and it's not fantastic, but Julio Rodriguez against Gomber is still 4-1 or plus 400. So that guy is amazing. There's no reason he shouldn't be up with the Judges and the Stantons and the Schwarbers in terms of Vegas pricing. So I like those three guys, and it's like kind of half of a play on odds and half of a play that I think they're in good spots. But, the guys that are at the top of this list, you can't dismiss their upside. They're just not worth betting on. Tell you what, it makes a good look for your Yankees DFS stack with some of those power hitters at low projected DFS ownership. Judge, Stanton, and Rizzo are all, borderline, unlikable to bet on because it's just not worth the return on investment. So play the Yankees in DFS, but maybe not so much bet on them. It's just not worth the risk.
Maybe bet on the Minnesota players to hit some home runs. Two other guys that I like to hit some homers today are Teoscar Hernandez, who you mentioned, as well as CJ Cron in that same game. I think both of those guys could be late night hammer home runs. And this one, that'll do it for another edition of FanDuel Friday. We're hoping you hit the like button. Good luck in all your MLB slates tonight. You want an early game-by-game breakdown? Check out the morning grind. You want a later game-by-game breakdown? Check out Grinders Live. And then, of course, the Crunch Time crew is going to be taking you right up for lock, breaking down those lineups, talking to you about cash games as well as some tournament pivots. So check out all the great content we got going on at RotoGrinders. We thank our sponsor, FanDuel, as well. And that'll do it. We will see you next week. I am TJ. This is Luuch. And thanks so much for tuning in. Peace.